In this lesson, we're going to go over what it would take to write the code that would be used when our tags are invoked on pages. So this will be a little bit shorter because the code's already in place for us here. But once again, continuing where we left off, we still need the world manager custom tag library.war file. So this will include the code for our tags. So go ahead and get that loaded if you haven't already. And here what we'll see is that we have a new package called tag handlers. And in there we have two classes, navigator and city iterator. Now these are going to be our tag handlers. And then we have a navigation details model. On the navigation details model, what we're looking at here is a simple way to model the navigation link on the side of our page. So here we have the link itself, such as index.jsp, and the friendly text that we want to show, such as home. So each one of those then will be easily accessible as a model in our different classes. So once again, in our tag library, we had two tags defined. One of them was navigation, which is going to be called navigator and runs off the navigator class, and one of them is city iterator. So looking at navigator, we need the navigator class in place, and that's here. And all we need to do for this one is actually extend the simple tag support, which will give us the ability to be run as a tag. And then we're going to create internally a local array list of navigation details. We're not passing any attributes into this code. So because of that, we have a private method that we're going to use. So it's not invocable outside of the class, but it will create navigation links. Now you'll note to yourself, wow, so now all of our links are hard-coded into code that has to be recompiled every time we want to change these links around. If this is the way you were going to go about doing it, absolutely. Here you'd have all of your navigation details hard-coded, so every time you make a change, you would have to modify this list. So it's not necessarily the best use of a tag. However, it is a good use for our sample here that we can see how we might use the tag in action. So by doing this, we've created a list of different links, and then what we'll do is just simply use a tag to display these links on our page. So here we'll have one method called doTag, which throws the JSP exception and IO exception, which is the implementation that we're extending from simple tag support. Once we're in there, we'll create our navigation links internally, and then we'll loop on the navigation details as they've been created. And for each one, we're going to grab the JSP context and set a local attribute for that context that we're on called navigation details or nav details, and we'll pass in that variable. So this nav details will be very important because that's what we'll use in the expression to actually grab that object, and then we can reference its properties just like you would if you had built it into the session. And then we invoke null to make sure that everything gets put out to the page there. So that takes care of navigator. So city iterator is just a little different. We had the exact same thing going on. We have city iterator as our tag class that's being implemented. Then we have an attribute called CityList. Now, when we have an attribute, remember we need to have a mutator that's public that exposes it. And just like if we were going to use a useBean, we want this attribute property to match the syntax very similar to what we would do with a useBean. So CityList here with a small c will point to set CityList with a capital C, just like it was if it was a useBean. So we'll see that here, set CityList is in place, and it simply takes in an array list of city with a value. Now you can see already here as well, we're starting to get pretty tightly coupled with models and pages interacting with these models and sending in array lists. So maybe this isn't the best way to go about things as well. It might be a nice way though, in order to interact with that information without having to know too much other than the fact that we're tightly coupled on our object models. And so here we're setting our local variable for cities. Once again, we're extending simple tag support, so we have all of that in place. We have to then call the doTag method when the tag is invoked on the page, and we'll just simply iterate the cities here as well, and each one of those we're going to output to a variable called city. And that wraps up our look at creating the code for the tag handlers that we're going to use when the tags are invoked. So next time we'll take a look at how we can actually use these tags on our pages and see everything start to work together for the reason that we set up this custom tag.